I say one of the biggest things we try to do is work around different students. We've had a few students that had, like, one student actually he had surgery. He couldn't really move his hands. His hands were almost stuck like this.
Yeah.
So he couldn't really do many of the moves. We had to kind of cope around and try to figure out how we could teach him, but still do the moves.
Yes,
So that's one of the biggest things I'd say what we do is every individual is different. So we try to teach them in different ways. And that's I actually had a meeting today with with our instructors about how different people learn different ways. So you can't, even though you might learn one way, the biggest thing is being an instructor is you need to be able to look at that and go, all right, I need to flip it around and go, how is this person learn? Are they visual? Are they more verbal? So I'd say that's one of the things I try to cultivate instructors, try to really work with them and tell them, you got to, you might know it, but once the teaching it, it's like a whole different ballgame.
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Conversations from the Hearth. Today, we are joined by Sensei James Orobono from Elite Mixed Martial Arts Center in Pennsylvania. Sensei James, thanks for coming on the show.
Welcome.
No, thank you for having me.
Sir.
I'm honored to be on here.
Yeah, well, it's our pleasure and our honor as well. So Sensei James, a lot of our students don't know much about you and elite martial arts. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in the martial arts, how you got started, maybe what initially inspired you, and then, it sounds like you've trained a lot of different disciplines. Can you tell us a little bit about your accolades and how you got to the point where you're running your own professional martial arts school?
Oh, sure. I started when I was 7, actually. I actually at school I had I'd say it was like 2 or 3 kids were picking on me at school, and I get always grown up. I was always like very I'm still kind of am, but I think I'm a lot more opened up. I was always into myself, so I never really was an outgoing. I mean, I kind of kept to myself, so I think I was a big target. It's funny looking back and telling a lot of our students in our school now. I never really noticed once I started martial arts, my shoulders. I was more proud of myself. Before I was very like hunched over, didn't look at surroundings, looked down, never looked at people. So I think I was a big target when I was younger. So I think it was like 2 or 3 kids actually were bullying me, like were picking on me, calling me names. Again, you can tell my fiery red hair. They probably call me all kinds of different names. So my parents saw one kid actually jump on my back while I was walking home from school, and they said, "All right, you need to do something. You need to do basketball or you need to do martial arts." And growing up, I always loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. I'm big into anime, so Dragon Ball Z was a big thing when I was younger.
Sure.
So I was always into martial arts. So I think we're on our way to go do basketball. I was like, you know what? I want to do martial arts. I want to be like Tommy Oliver from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So I went to a school called Tiger Schulman's. It was actually where I originally started. Like I said, I was 7. I started still very, very shy, but once I started, I felt the confidence in myself. But also another thing I would say is when I was born, I was actually born with a cognitive processing problem. So when I was younger, I actually had the tubes in my ears were actually clogged, I think, for about a year or 2. So I actually lost about a year or 2 of my learning. So throughout school, I still now, but not as much. If you give me a piece of paper and try to tell me to write something, I have a hard time. Once I get like my thoughts going, I'm good. But it takes a long time for me to really get myself going. But I actually had a neurologist told my mom when I was like really young, said I would never be able to do anything athletic, never drive a car, basically do nothing. And I'd say martial arts is the biggest thing that got me to where I am now. I'm driving a car now, running a school of 30 plus kids. I'm actually, I do nunchucks, bow, all kinds of weapons. So going from a neurologist saying that I would never do anything athletic, baseball, nothing like that, to now being able to do all this different kind of stuff. I'd say martial arts is the biggest thing that helped me. I would not be like what person I am now if it wasn't for some type of martial art.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you trained in a lot of different disciplines. What was that experience like? What different disciplines did you train in?
Right now we do teach 6 styles, like I said before. The 6 styles we do teach right now is jiu-jitsu, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, nunjitsu, karate, American wrestling, Muay Thai kickboxing. But I think the biggest thing is, because the UFC, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the biggest thing right now. So throughout my training, I did learn sorry, my dogs are next to me. They of course want my attention. So if you do see me looking down, it's because of my dog. But yeah, I actually learned from a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor who's a purple belt. So I never went to a straight on Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. We actually had one come to the school that we were at, and I learned from him. So like bits and pieces learning, I try to add it into our curriculum. So I feel like we have a good curriculum right now.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. And you integrate it all into one class, or you have different classes for different curriculum?
We actually do is we have throughout the month we have 3 different ranges that we teach. The first week we teach is stand up, like sparring. So it's like our punches, our kicks. The second week is our clinches. That would be like the nunjitsu, the actual clinching. Not as much of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, more of the jiu-jitsu, where like clinching them up and like the self-defense part. And then our last week is our ground week. So that's be like the mixed the Brazilian jiu-jitsu part. But yeah, and then like I said, a lot of people, once they see mixed martial arts, they think, oh, it's probably the UFC, because they think mixed martial arts. Where it's kind of funny how we always have to explain that there's a mixed martial arts and there's a mixed martial arts. Like mixed martial arts is not just UFC, and that's the biggest thing I had to say once new students come in. They're like, I want to be able to fight like in the UFC. And it's like, well, do you really? Do you really know what? Once you get in there, you're getting punched in the face. Do you really want to get punched in the face? I teach our students not to get punched in the face. So
yes, sir.
I don't know. I actually had one.
No one likes getting hit in the head, that's for sure.
No, exactly. I actually had one. My father is a Shihan, so him and I run the school. Yes. So and he's one of the big things that got me into the martial arts as well. And he was doing a little bit before me when he was younger, not as much. He stopped, but then once he heard I wanted to do martial arts, then he got back into it again. Cool. But we actually went to there was a school that was near us, I guess was closing because of COVID. Yeah. And we went. We were going in just to see if there's any stuff because he was trying to sell the stuff, so we were trying to help him. He actually was teaching that actual mixed martial arts, the UFC part, and he was explaining to us how he would train people by having them lay on the ground. They put like 5-ounce gloves on. He'd sit there and for 8 minutes just have them punch. He would just punch them on the ground. And my dad and I looked at each other and go like no wonder you lost your students. I hate to say that, but like, how did you keep your students and be able to do that kind of stuff? Exactly. Again, we do very light. I'd say very light doing that, but it's more like we have the pad and we'll have the pad hit them in the head while on the ground. They have to bump us and then try to roll us over, but nothing like where we're reaching back and trying to hit the person as hard as they can, like for 8 minutes. I don't understand how, because again, it makes no sense. Like I said, teaching is not just my only job. I do also, like you said before, I do work with adults with intellectual disabilities. So I understand people. A lot of this is a hobby for a lot of people. They want to do martial arts, learn to defend themselves, but you have a career. Like other people have jobs. You don't want to go in there and get beat up all day. So that's like I say one of the biggest things we try to do is work around different students. We've had a few students that had one student actually he had surgery. He couldn't really move his hands. His hands were almost stuck like this. Yeah. So he couldn't really do any of the moves. We had to kind of kind of cope around and try to figure out how we could teach him, but still do the moves.
Yes,
So that's one of the biggest things I'd say in what we do is every individual is different. So we try to teach them in different ways. And that's one of the, actually had a meeting today with with our instructors about how different people learn different ways. So you can't, even though you might learn one way, the biggest thing is being an instructor is you need to be able to look at that and go, all right, I need to flip it around and go, how does this person learn? Are they visual? Are they more verbal? So I'd say that's one of the things I try to cultivate instructors, try to really work with them and tell them, you got to, you might know it, but once the teaching it, it's like a whole different ballgame.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now you mentioned you worked with adults with
Yes.
disabilities. Is that within the martial arts, or is that somewhere else outside of the martial
We
arts?
have actually both. Mainly, like I said, my main job is I work with adult intellectual disabilities. So a lot of them are like, I'd say more like autism. A lot of them like autism, Asperger's. Some of them, like I said, because of my martial arts background, I work with more of the tougher clients. So a lot of them like have like bipolar. I've actually had one that actually was one was very aggressive. So I had to. So my boss loves. She goes like, I love how like when you defend your the one client would try to hit me, and like you kind of blocked it and moved away. And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't want to get hit, and I can't really use my martial arts on him, so I have to try to make sure I'm not hurting him, and that's the biggest thing. But mainly is de-escalation, is try to talk the person down is the main thing. Which and then it's another thing why we tell our students is you don't want to fight. So if a bully is trying to hurt you, or if they're verbally attacking you, there's no reason to hit them. You talk to them, give them 3 warnings. They don't, after those 3 warnings, if they don't want to listen, they want to punch you, you defend yourself. So that's one thing is, our style is, like I said, I was saying before about mixed martial arts. We want to do the actual defensive part, and that's, nobody wants to fight. Like I was saying before, mainly thing is stun and run. So I don't want to be in a fight. I don't think anybody else wants to fight. So defending yourself in a way that you can immobilize the person, and then try to talk them down, de-escalate the situation. And but yeah, that's, like I said, it's. But actually, talking about that in school, because people knew I did martial arts.
Yes, sir.
They would always go like, "Oh, tough guy, why don't you show me your martial arts?" I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not gonna do that." So I actually had one person again pick on me. So he was trying to tap me on the shoulder. He would hit me in the hallway. So I always tell our students, I go like, I don't like fighting either, but some situations you need to. So he was poking me, hitting me, calling me names. The one day in the hallway, he was walking towards me. So he went to ram his shoulder into me. I did it right back to him. He fell on the floor. All of his friends were laughing. That was the last time he ever tried just to deal with me. And so that's the last time he ever talked to me. So I guess I don't like fighting, but if I need to be a little physical, I will.
Yes, sir. If I can hop in there, I mean, even something
Sure.
like that where, you know, you've seen this kind of behavior ramping up, especially in like a high school setting or in a school setting where it's like, you know, you don't want to be in the scene where you're in the middle of the hallway fighting and everybody's like, ah,
Exactly.
right? And so even something, knowing yourself in a way where you can say, listen, I'm not here to like seriously injure this person who has been picking on me, but I know my body well enough to give them that shoulder check back and say like, you know, this is what one of those warnings, right? Like it's not a joke. It's not something to keep poking fun of. Like I am training to defend myself and to maybe send that message in a way that isn't just, all right, do you want some? Right? Like, you know,
yeah, exactly.
The showdown in the hallway.
And that's why, like, you saying that, actually, have you guys watched the TV show Cobra Kai?
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
Great.
So
I haven't watched season 4 yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, no spoilers. I won't say anything then. But I actually I think it's funny because a lot of the students coming in were saying like watching that TV show. Why don't we teach the same way that Cobra Kai teaches? And I'm like, well, there are some schools that teach that way, but we're not strike first. It's the defensive part. But like you were saying before, we try to tell a lot of kids that you don't need to fight, but sometimes you might need to do that and defend yourself. Like I said, we actually had another student came up to me. I guess he was being picked on, and they were throwing a punch at him, and he's a black belt. I told him, I go, well, you don't realize you're a black belt? Like you can defend yourself. You can, if you wanted to, you could really hurt that person. So actually, like he said the person was trying to throw punches at him. I said, well, what would you do? Like, if looking back at it, if he threw a punch at you, what would you do? He goes, well, I would block it. I go, well, what should you do after that? He goes, well, take him to the ground. I go, exactly. Take him to the ground, hold him down there, hold his hands, and go, stop. I'll let you go as soon as you stop hitting me. And if you need to, hold him until two teachers come in and separate you guys. But if other students see you holding his hand and trying to talk him down, they're going to go, oh, he didn't start the fight. He was trying to stop him, but he wasn't doing that. He was trying to hit him, and he was trying to talk him down.
Yes,
So that's the biggest thing, is trying to tell our students is, you don't want to fight, but sometimes you might need to get a little physical, but it doesn't mean you're fighting. It doesn't mean that you're going to get in trouble. And that's the biggest thing, is trying to explain to them is you're not going to get in trouble. Your parents are not going to be mad at you. They're bringing you here to defend yourself. They want you to defend yourself.
One thing we've been talking a lot about the last few weeks on Conversations from the Hearth is violence de-escalation, how important that is, and how the verbal judo or verbal de-escalation of the situation is so important to a martial artist. You know, we talk a lot about the self-defense skills, the physical skills, and you know, a lot of the parents, when they come in, that's what they want. They want their kid to be the toughest person around, and they know how to defend themselves. If anyone comes at them, they'll just break them into pieces. But the truth is, and this is something sometimes hard to articulate to a parent when they're first coming in, is the most important thing that they're going to learn from martial arts, the most important thing they're going to take away, are the leadership life skills that's going to make them into a confident leader in their life, so that people are gravitated towards them and not away from them. And they get to, they're not, if they get left alone, if they get pushed to the side, they can get socially isolated, and that's when they get picked on by the crowd. So it's really about learning those good social skills so that never happens in the first place. And any long-term martial artist who started when they were a kid, like you or myself, knows that just knowing how to defend yourself doesn't actually solve anything, because when it's not just about how do you defend yourself, it's when do you defend yourself.
Yes.
A lot of times that's a very gray zone. You have to make it very clear, everyone who's watching, that this person has crossed the line. They are attacking you. They mean you harm. And sometimes you have to wait till it's painfully obvious before you defend yourself. Or if you disable them, you're going to look like the monster, and everyone's going to start socially isolating you and start picking on you. And that's why a lot of times the bully becomes the bullied become the bully, you know?
Yes.
And so I like to impress upon parents, like, yes, he's going to learn how to defend himself, but he's also 4 years old, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So much you can do at 4 years old.
Yes.
How you know, I could train up like a toy poodle to be the most vicious toy poodle in the world, but do you think there's a toy poodle out there who's been in the fighting pits that you couldn't beat if you wanted to? I mean, it's a toy poodle this big. I mean, it might bite your arm a little bit, but you're gonna like hold it down with one hand, like, you know, smash his head or something. So a 4-year-old child, there's, you know, not much they can do to a fully grown adult. Now, there's some things they can do to escape and run away, or make it hard for you to take them away, but they're not going to be defeating, you know, a 6'5", 250-pound jacked guy who really wants to do them harm. They may be able to, you know, defend themselves against another kid who's 5 or 6 years old, or somewhere in that range, the physical range where there's a possibility, although it's going to be much harder as that person gets bigger. But the one thing that they can take away from their training that they're going to use every single day are those leadership life skills. It's going to make them stand above the rest, and people are going to be attracted to them. And that's going to make it so that they never have to even use those physical skills.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. And that's one thing when we like I said, we're a self-defense is first. And we try to explain to a lot of the parents about that too, is The kids, we're teaching them stuff that trying to slip get out of a situation, not to sit in there and bang and try to fight that person. That's not what you're going to get in trouble. You, especially being a full grown adult, you're getting in there, you're getting a fight, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
At school, if you're actually fist fighting, you're going to get in trouble. So, and like you were saying, 4 or 5-year-olds against a full grown adult, it's very limited that you're going to do with it. So that's what we try to teach. And like, if you grab your wrist, you roll your wrist, slip out of it, and get out of the situation. We actually have one drill. Speaking of that, we have actually one drill where we have one kid in the middle. We'll have like 4 or 5 kids, and they'll go in, like simulate like if somebody attacks you. And we try to, first we have them attack them. So we'll go in very light, like they'll do the self-defenses, elbow strikes, strike, no contact. And watching the kids run around in a circle. And then once they're done, I go to them like, now I have a question for you. In a real situation like that, would you just stand there and just keep trying to hit everybody? Like, well, yeah. And I go, why would you want to fight? Why would you not keep your eyes, see where the exit is, and run away? Biggest thing, and like you were saying verbally, why not scream? Go, help, somebody's hurt me. One thing we also saying too is sometimes, I hate the way society is, even if you yell help, people look away. We try to tell our kids to say is yell fire. If you yell fire, well, there's a fire, they're going to look and see. As soon as they hear fire, they're going to see 4 or 5 people attacking one person, then they go and help. So that's, like you said, with that, the verbal, trying to use your mouth. That's your first line of self-defense, is your mouth. And not just de-escalating the situation if somebody is attacking you, but not just if you're being bullied, go to a parent, go to a teacher and tell a teacher what's happening. Because as soon as you tell a teacher, the teacher knows, then they can help you. Now, if you don't tell a teacher, and then again, you do defend yourself, like you were saying before, the person that was bullied now looks like the bully. They look like the monster because you didn't verbally tell a teacher or an adult that you're getting picked on. So that's like a big thing is, and like you were saying with the confidence part, is trying to instill that confidence in the students, trying to make themselves feel better. And then knowing that if you defend yourself, you can defend yourself. But also too, I remember when I was younger, my mom had a book, and the book's called The Gentle Art of Verbal Self-Defense. So she actually helped my sister and I actually taught us about that. And in that is, if somebody asks you a question, you flip the question on them. So like, and again, being bullied, if the bully keeps saying like, you're stupid, like, well, stop that. That's not going to stop them. You need to flip the question around on them and so if they say like, you're stupid, well, thank you, I appreciate that. They're going to look at you and go like, what? Aren't you mad that I'm calling you stupid? I'm like, no, thank you for telling me that. I really appreciate the way that you telling me that. And that, like you said, de-escalates the situation. They go, well, I was all mad, but why are you being nice to me? I'm being mean to you. Why are you being so nice? And sometimes that stops the whole conflict. So we try to instill that into our students too, is using a little bit of that to explain to them, like, use your words. Your words hurt, but you can also help the situation by using your words.
Yeah. And another thing, just kind of going back a step, something you touched on a minute ago, was that real violence is not a pretty thing. It's not something that we really want to be involved in. And I think that's probably where you're coming from when you say, we're not a real MMA school. We're like an MMA school, like we're mixing ideas together to create the best self-defense system.
Yes.
And I think maybe some people think, maybe he's not the real deal because he doesn't do that. But I think those people probably are coming from a place of ignorance because they don't really know what real fighting is like. Because real fighting is ugly. It's something it's why we don't really want to start a fight, because we know how ugly it can get, and we want to avoid that kind of a situation. Someone's, if I get in a fight, it's not going to be like the movies where I just boom, boom, and the person goes down the ground and it's over and they got incapacitated. It's going to be really ugly. If you're going to try to knock someone unconscious with your bare hands, yeah, you're going to hit him a lot. You're going to knock him to the ground. You're like stepping on his head. You know, that's not something that from the onlooker's perspective is going to look good. And maybe you're going to get arrested, and you're going to go to jail, and all these other things that are associated with real violence. So it's something to be avoided at all costs. And, you know, as a good martial arts school, you know, we always talk about how it's the last resort. We teach you self-defense. It sounds exactly what you teach as well.
Yes.
So anyway, I want to kind of turn the topic a little bit back to what you were talking about, working with adults with learning disabilities as well as kids. And sounds like that's kind of a specialty of yours. And it's something that all martial arts instructors have some familiarity with, because we get a lot of kids, you know, coming in, their parents say, you know, my son's got ADHD, you know, my son's dyslexic, you know, can you help him? And of course we can, I think it's one of the few activities you can put your kid in that has just an immense potential for change within your son or daughter. What are some of the tactics that you use to affect that change in your students?
And actually, the repetition, and going back to like with me, where like I had that cognitive processing issue. It was that they actually, like I said, go back. Neurologist went back to my mom after doing martial arts and said, it's amazing. I guess the repetitiveness of doing the same punches every class, doing like forms, katas every class, it made my brain work, and it actually helped me slow my mind down. I think that's mostly what it was I was thinking so quickly that I couldn't slow my mind down, and that slowed my mind down. So going back to like you were saying, using the repetitiveness, the same stuff every class, every week we do the same stuff, still progressing a little bit, but still repetitively doing the same punches, the same kicks. It gets their mind focused, and they can really work on those punches. We actually do have one student. He can't be in the class right now. He's nonverbal, so he really can't express himself, and his motor skills are not that great. But actually, I just talked to his father today about this. When he first started, he was shut down. He wouldn't do anything, and then we just had him do in punches, even like not even doing a full fist. He might even high five the pad. Just having to do the same punches over and over. Doing like clinches, he'll grab our gi, hold the gi, and he actually said that on at home, his son's actually listening more at school. He said there's not as many freakouts, because when he gets freaked out, he holds tight or hugs you really tight. And we've been going through the repetitiveness and trying to explain to him, like, it's okay, calm down. But yeah, he said he actually is not as many behaviors, and it's really helping him. But like you said, what was your question again? I'm sorry, I got off topic again. I apologize.
What are like some of your strategies for affecting positive change in adults with learning disabilities?
And depending on the severity of the disability, some cases, like they're nonverbal, just trying to, like I said, the repetitiveness. The one client actually at work I'm working now is he's very intelligent, but he works his mind so quickly and he gets so upset, so flustered. So trying to just calm him down, trying to de-escalate if he does get upset, and trying to explain to him. Sometimes you need to think about it before. Like I said, with a couple of our students, sometimes if they can't stand for really long, get fidgety, we actually have like these fidget toys. So my mom actually got I'm not trying to explain. It's almost like a string, like you can pull it. They sit there and just pull it, and then and actually what they can do is hold it, and then when they do punches, they can still hold it, stretch it, but still throw those punches. So it actually helps him. It gets them to focus on stretching it, but they can stretch it and still throw those punches at the pad. And then it gets them it gets them like their mind in the box. Because a lot of times their mind is outside the box because there's so much noise and everything. So it's just like they can't focus. So that does it gets them to stay in their kind of themselves and focus on one thing.
Yeah. If I can hop in, a thought that I've been bouncing around in my head for a couple months now, and I feel like it's pertinent to this conversation, is this idea of ritual and repetition inviting familiarity. And
yes.
And so when you have, for example, a student who, maybe the first time that you hand them that stretchy string, they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? But as
Exactly,
they get
yes.
accustomed to it, and as they start to say like, oh, like this is something that despite all this noise, despite all this sort of sensory overload, like I can ground myself into this object or into this very specific experience, that I feel is such a driving force in saying, okay, now that we're grounded in something, we can really start to take those steps into the next.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
funny. I have dyslexia, and I went to a special school for kids with dyslexia. And one of the things we used were these memory boards. They were like a kind of a rough board that you would run your hand over. I'm not sure how effective it was, honestly, but the theory there was that you would like learn something, and you would, like, let's say you were learning spelling words, you would say the spelling word and you would feel at the same time. And apparently this was supposed to help take that information and seal it in your mind better. And I think doing a lot of the physical things in the martial arts can help have a similar effect to that memory board. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, just kind of going back just a little step, is how martial arts instruction is very different from classroom instruction. In classroom instruction, you guys all start together and you all learn exactly the same way. But one of the great things about a martial arts school is it's always rolling. You can come in March, you come in August, and you're going to get the same level of attention, and the experience will be tailored to where you're at, where you're going, and your abilities and what works well for you. So, I think there's a unique benefit to the martial arts instruction just in the way that the instruction is kind of rolled out. We can take, when you go to school, you have a teacher for maybe one semester and then you never see them again. But in the martial arts, you're going to have that same teacher for maybe 10 years. Who knows how long? You could have your whole life. And that instructor is going to really know how you learn and is going to be able to feed you the curriculum in a way that's going to help you learn it the best. And you can develop that long-term relationship where you can't really get that in a classroom environment where it's just basically packaged and you just push it out and everyone's supposed to absorb it in the exact same way.
Exactly. I would say I really pity teachers like that, because I know the schools, districts tell them that they have to teach a certain way. And I know it's got to be difficult teaching 20 kids with no help. And again, you're trying to get them to focus on that one thing. And then you have Johnny in the background who's playing with his pencil and joking. And then you really can't, I don't want to say you really can't discipline them. Where I say in martial arts, if they do act up, I drop down, give me 3 push-ups. And I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, give me 3 push-ups. And then the discipline part. So, and again, but I like I said, we actually have 3 Joshus who are working their ways to becoming actually running a class like this. And they're having the hardest time of trying to figure out like game planning the class and trying to figure out how should each student is still learning. And I told him, I was like, I've been teaching for, and I kind of feel like I'm old now. I said, I've been teaching for almost 20 years. And once I said that, I was like, I feel really old. Like I said, but I've been doing martial arts for 24 years. So it's like I said, it's a lot of practice. I've been teaching since I was 12, and I'm actually turning 31 in a couple weeks. So like I said, it's a lot of practice. Like I said, I'm still learning. Each student is still teaching me how to better myself. And I always try to explain to them, like, when we have if there's a tough student, learn from that. Because again, how they might not be learning a certain way. Once you figure out a way for them to learn, now once that happens again, you know how to figure out that situation. And then but it's just trying to game plan that classroom. It's tough. It's very difficult. I say for a teacher like that, but like you were saying,
a lot of times
knowing the students. No, go ahead.
Yeah. A lot of times, I think people get into teaching for all the wrong reasons. Like they'll get into teaching because they want to be the big dog on top and everyone's underneath them, but they don't actually really care about helping mentor up the next generation. Or they want to basically profess their knowledge so that they can look intelligent. But really, and you can kind of spot those people because they say things like, I might get some shade from this. I don't mean this like everyone who says this is necessarily in this category, but you know, they'll say things like, well, I don't really like working with children, or I don't like, you know, that kid is so difficult. You know, I don't like working with kids like that. And I have the complete opposite opinion. When I get a really hard kid that comes in, I'm like, ooh, all the staff are like, okay, how are we going to break this open this egg and like make this like really raw, you know, student into something great. And you would be surprised. Like some of our best students have done the most ridiculous things on day one. Like you had to drag them off the floor, kicking and screaming, or they're like giving me the middle finger in the middle of class, like swearing at me. And then they're like perfect sit, black belt, you know what I mean, in the end. It's just incredible. And that's what makes this profession just so rewarding. That and the fact that you can be with that same student for, you know, their whole life.
Yeah, actually, one of our junior Josh, or he's going to become an instructor. He's a senpai right now. He he started, he was like 5 or 6 when he started, and he's now like, I think 11. And I even said to him, I was like, where did the time go? Because I remember when you first started here, you were so little, and now you're going like the middle school. And I know his mom even said the same thing. And like you said, it's amazing how long like you're with somebody, and like they grow, and it's really rewarding. And actually, saying with what you're saying about the one student, we actually had a student like that who would hit us, kick us, spit at us, curse at us, and I'd be the one that, because if you hit me, it's okay. I mean, I'm trying to get you to focus. I drag him off the mat, take him to the back, let him calm down. And as soon as he calmed down, I was like, all right, what happened? He goes, I got upset. I'm like, well, why'd you get upset? I don't know. I go, well, you need to stop doing that. And then from him cursing and yelling to listening and being a black belt. And it's like you said, it's rewarding to see somebody that tough student who didn't want to listen, didn't want to be there, to wanting to be there and earning that black belt. I still love when our brown belts go test their black belt, they earn that black belt. I feel just as proud as them, because just to see them go through the years training hard and working, it's so rewarding. Awesome. But like you said, I actually know, we actually had an old instructor that kind of was like what you were saying. She was of course she was a teacher. She was trained to become a teacher. So like a schoolroom teacher, like a preschool teacher or something. She didn't like kids. She didn't like kids, never liked kids, but she wanted to become a teacher. I feel for the same reason. When a student come in, it's too tough, she goes, I don't like that student. It's too tough. I don't want to work with them. I'm like, okay, you take that person over here, I'll take them. And then she'd always wonder why they would listen to me and we're doing well, but never with her. And I'm like, sometimes it's the energy you're putting off on the person. Sometimes people feed your energy. So if you don't want to work with that person, or you don't feel like working today, kids are gonna sense that. So they're gonna feel that. So that's why I always, when they come in, my sister and I always try to engage with the kids and learn the kids, so we know the kids. Because again, some kids are different. Some kids love basketball. Some kids love Fortnite. The biggest one is Fortnite, I would say right now. So I'm still trying to learn Fortnite. Still trying to learn the different skins and everything. I'm learning, but it's gonna take a while. But the kids, they could talk all day about Fortnite, all about Minecraft and everything. So it's just learning the kids. And once you do that, you gain their respect, and then they start listening better towards you. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, learning the kids, that's the biggest thing.
You know, anyone can teach a mediocre adult class. It's pretty hard to screw up an adult class, I feel like. But, you know, when you work with kids, especially really young kids, you learn really quickly what you're doing wrong, like that.
Oh, exactly.
So you have to, it's a humbling experience. And I think a lot of people who just say, oh, I don't like working with kids, it's like, that's where we start. You know, when I have new students coming on the leadership team, I'm like, you need to go work with little warriors, like the really little kids, so like 3 to 5 years old. because
Same thing. We have a little dragon class. It's the same
Yeah.
thing.
they're
like
just
3 to
so
5 months.
emotionally driven that if you get off, if you look unconfident for even a minute, they'll eat you alive.
Exactly. Yes. We
Yeah.
do the same thing. We have new kids, like they'll get their black belt or like they're working to their black belt. We tell them like, all right, let's start with the little dragon class. Little dragons, it's different. They come in and they can actually like hold the pads for the kids. They love it. I'm like, you hold the pads, but then once they actually run the group and then they start talking, they're like I went to school today and I saw a butterfly, and I'm like, okay. And then the kids will start talking to them. I'm like, okay, you gotta talk, but you need to try to focus on the class. And you lose their attention really quickly, but it's funny. Like definitely, if you could teach kids, you could do anything, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Professor James, it's been a real pleasure having you on. Any final thoughts, Jesse, Sensei James?
Yes, sir.
It's okay.
We had Professor Jason on the podcast earlier this week.
Okay.
So
Similar
close.
names, yeah.
Very similar, yes.
So I guess one last thing I will say is, in transitioning to this position, I'm relatively new into martial arts training. I just hit 3 years at our school a couple weeks ago, and that, this is my first experience with martial arts really in my life, other than just viewing from a distance, growing up watching Power Rangers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the same. And this experience, one of the huge takeaways is in respect to those teachers who are teaching at public schools and who are, not even teachers, but just people who are working in capacities with other people, whether it's people with intellectual disabilities, people with mobility disability, whatever it is, in contexts where they don't get to work with those people for 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 years, right? Like, my respect for those people in those positions has gone up exponentially. Like my girlfriend and so many of her friends are, my girlfriend's an early childhood educator, and her friends are elementary school educators, and I have friends who are now transitioning to teaching high school, and so they're in the public school system and even the private school system, and to hear sometimes, and they're like, we have this really challenging student, and we have 6 months to figure it out, right? And and that's it, because they will just be gone, right? And we have
to they go to another problem. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why it never gets fixed, though.
Exactly. Exactly. I see a lot of people, like a lot of kids like that. One kid, same thing. He going through the school system, it just never got fixed, like you said, where they tried to do one thing, it didn't work, and the next person's going to try it. Where I think with the martial arts, you can actually
strip
it down. Yes. Exactly. Yes. But no, we can strip it down and figure it out then.
Yeah.
But like you said, I feel if you're in education like that, I feel teachers should get paid a lot more. Because again, you're only working them for 6 months, and it's
in a lot of ways, I feel it's a lot more selfless, because you really have such a small window to be with those students, and it's very difficult to have the same level of impact, I feel like, in that kind of environment. I remember when I was a kid, when I was in high school, one of the teachers bought every single kid in the school like a little ice cream cup. And I was like, man, that must have cost this teacher like his entire salary, for the month, I mean, there's a lot of ice cream. There was like 2,000 kids in our school. And you should see just how disrespectful these kids were. They just come up and like, my ice cream. They're like, can I have another one too? And it's like, yeah, no one appreciated that. And even I remember teachers would have like a fun day and they'd like give everyone a piece of candy or something. That cost that teacher a lot. For you to get that one little piece of candy cost that teacher a lot. And you didn't appreciate that at all. I always tried to really appreciate it when teachers did that kind of stuff for me. But I felt like most of my peers just didn't.
I want to, so following up on that, just tying back into the martial arts instruction conversation is, sometimes my girlfriend will come home, she's like, we've got this student, I'm really trying to work it out. And as you said, like, playing that respect game and like, learning about the student by asking them these genuine questions so that you can find that one little thing that's like, oh, like that's the switch.
All it takes is one thing, yes.
And so as she's navigating through this, you know, sometimes I'll come home and I'm like, yeah. And I was like, just make them do push-ups. You know?
Exactly.
Everybody down. We're just gonna hold it. We're gonna hold our plank. We're gonna hold our push-ups, whatever. She's like, I can't do that. All right, well, we've got to think of a way you can use some form of, you know, physical discipline.
Exactly. Yes.
Without it being a problem. So
true.
That's funny.
We probably, none of us could actually teach in the school.
Yeah, I went to school. I was going to school for become a paraeducator. So I was starting to, but it's, yeah, I probably would break out and go like, "All right, give me 3 push-ups." And they're like, well, you can't do that to me. And I'm like, too bad. Like that.
Like,
no, I don't have my gi on today. That's I had the wrong black belt on today. Oh shoot, I can't make you do that.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, sir. We really wish you the best of luck with your school out there, Elite Martial Arts. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about Sensei James and Elite Martial Arts, we'll put a link in the description so you can find out more about him. Professor James,
Sensei James.
Oh, Sensei James.
Okay. I mean, maybe I need to become a professor. Maybe that's what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure. Definitely, I enjoyed this.
Likewise.
And right to you guys. Hopefully, you guys become even bigger. And yes.
Yeah. If you ever have something you want to talk about, you're always welcome on the podcast.
Sounds good.
Take care,
you.
sir.
You also. Bye.
If you enjoyed that podcast, please consider liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel, as well as hitting the notification bell. We offer in-person, group, and private lessons at our facility in Kyle, Texas, as well as virtual lessons anywhere in the world. If you'd like to learn more about our programs, you can find us online at risingphoenixtkd.com.